your landing page and home page as well, so other people can view this. Yeah, so thanks a lot for joining us today. As Reiner indicated, there's kind of 3 parts of this training. We've got just a few slides that take a user through what is TSANet, right? So they can come to this not knowing anything about TSANet and get a quick understanding of what it is. Then I go through a quick demo of TSANet Connect, and the last piece is to actually have you guys send a test case. So you'll actually get some hands-on as well. There'll be a point here, if you do not have a login to the site, I'll show you how to get that here in a moment. But if you already have a login, feel free to go to the site and log in. But if you don't panic. We'll show you how to do that here in a few seconds. So first of all, what is TSANet? It is set up as a not-for-profit industry alliance, really focused on providing multi-vendor support between vendors. You can see here, this is actually an old slide. We've got over 800 members now. So for the most part, I would say if you need to collaborate with an IT vendor, there's a high probability that you're going to find them on TSANet. And then as far as what TSANet provides, for the purpose of this call, we're really going to focus on the collaboration, multi-vendor collaboration aspect. There is some other things such as the regional focus groups. We've got some engineer knowledge exchange coming, but really the core around TSANet is the ability for vendors to work together on mutual customer issues. So there's a legal foundation that allows that to happen in a very kind of seamless, efficient way. And then there is the tactical interface, which is really the focus of this call, which is TSANet Connect. And that's the interface you go into to make the collaboration request. From a very high level, how it works is just kind of a little picture here to walk through. The classic scenario is you are working with one of your customers and there's another vendor in the environment and you don't know if it's their problem or if it's your problem. You need their help to isolate the issue. This has you logging into TSANet Connect, making a collaboration request with the other vendor, and that process puts you directly in contact with the other engineer. And at that point, you are not going back to the TSANet Connect system. You'll see kind of how that works. You're just working directly with that other partner to resolve the customer's issue. And it's all around customer experience, making sure that we're not finger pointing the customer and having them work with this vendor and that vendor and coming back. It's really intended to make sure the customer isn't getting pointed around. So a couple of examples on when you might want to use TSANet. And I will start by saying, in general, whenever you're dealing with a multi-vendor issue with your customer, it's a great time to take a look at using TSANet. So first one here is probably the most common, right? It's kind of a break fix type issue. Something was working and it stopped working. And of course, one of the first things you do in troubleshooting is try to figure out what's changed. In this scenario, the piece of software was updated and it caused issues with your software. This is kind of a classic scenario where you want to understand what changed there. Is it something that maybe a configuration modification in your side could fix, or did it create some compatibility issue? But bottom line, you need the help for the other vendor to try to figure that out. So that's example one. Example two is an installation, right? So it doesn't need to be a break fix. Again, it could be installation, it could be a demo, what have you. Again, the scenario is you're working in an environment, there's another member's product there, and it looks like it's having some issues. Same as the one above, you've got a mutual customer. You need the help of the other vendor to move the issue forward. This is a second example. But as I said before, hopefully you can kind of see some of these issues in the daily cases that you're working. And in general, if you're working with a customer and there's another vendor's product involved and you think you can solve it faster by pulling that other vendor in, that's when you use TSANet. So then moving into TSANet Connect, it is the we'll call it the new site, even though now it's a couple of years old. It is a very simple web application, and I'll show you exactly how that works. It includes integrated escalation management. It's very open, allowing for very easy ways for members to integrate it into their workflows, but really kind of designed to be very simple for engineers to use, right? So obviously, this isn't something you're logging into and using every single day. It's kind of an exception process, so we need to make sure that it's super, super simple to use, and hopefully you'll see that that's the case. So here's a point where if you do not have a login to the system, you can just go to your portal, which is f5.connect.tsanet.org. So if you go there, again, you'll see where you can log in. But if you don't have an account, it's as simple as giving your F5 email address. You'll get an email back containing a login link. That will be good for 30 days. You'll see, though, as soon as you click on that link and come in, it's going to ask you to complete your profile, including setting a password, and that will give you a permanent account. So if you do not have a login to the system, please do that, because at the end of this this session, we'll go ahead and have you send me a test case. So you'll need to be able to get into this system. Okay, so just a quick couple slides here on how the system works, and then I'll switch over to a demo. That's usually a lot more interesting. But as far as the system goes, you log in, you're going to be presented with this interface, and it's really for the purpose of finding the partner that you want to collaborate with. You can either do that through the dynamic search, or you can pin favorites to it as well. So if you work with one or two vendors all the time, you can simply add them to your favorites. The system does have some integrated workflow. Here's an example. So if you're doing a search, you could have a couple exceptions pop up. It could show you a partner name where it has this comment that you don't have a relationship with them, but it gives you an ability to click this send invite. There could also be a scenario where you're searching for a company and they don't show up, and you could select this not able to find the partner. In both of those cases, and I'll show you exactly how that works, it will send some workflow to TSANet, and we'll work with your business manager to figure out how we get a relationship or bring that partner on board. But I would say this is very important, because we want to make sure that when you go to the site, you've got the partners there that you need to collaborate with, right? We kind of view that if the partner's not there, that's kind of a failed collaboration request. So definitely, if you see those types of things, make sure to use this workflow to send us that information. Once you do find the partner, you are going to end up on what we call a process form. And all of these really are going to look the same. And I'll show you a lot of different examples. Yes, members have the ability to add a custom field here or there, but for the most part, this is really going to look exactly the same for all the members, and the process is going to work exactly the same. And this was really, I would say, the big promise behind TSANet Connect, right, in comparison to the older process, which was, you went in there and everyone's process was different, right? So it made it very confusing on how to work. Sometimes it worked well, sometimes it didn't work so well. Now everything is really simplified and is exactly the same. So how you collaborate with VMware is exactly how you collaborate with Cisco, is exactly how you collaborate with Red Hat. They just all work exactly the same. So it's very easy to go in the system and make a request and get it followed through. You'll see, and I'll highlight this as well, there's some SLA management. So we make sure that you do get a response. If not, there's some escalation alerts that kick off and alert people on the receiving side. Eventually, TSANet staff will also get involved. This is, again, one of the promises of TSANet Connect, right, is want to make sure as an engineer when you go to the site and you make a collaboration request, you do get a response. So we make sure that happens. So this is just a quick overview of how the process works. And it's just a simple handshake, right? So walking through this, you can see here where you log into the site, you find the member, you complete their process form. That sends an inbound request to the receiving member. They do an initial response and you receive that response back. So in this case, then you will have all the information you need to work directly with that receiving member. You've got their case number. They're going to give you the engineer contact details. You really have everything you need to work the case directly with them. So you see at that point, you're working directly with the vendor. You don't have to go back and update TSANet Connect in any way. So it's really this one-time use, go in, make the request. Everything else is done outside the system, either through email workflow or once you get connected to the member, they might have you go to a team site or something like that. But for the most part, you're just doing a quick collaboration request and then going back to your CRM system. And then you see these little timers here that just highlights where we've got some SLA monitoring going on. So just kind of walking through this again. You've got the interface where you find the partner. It's going to take you to the form. You fill that out, and you'll experience this because we're actually going to do a demo. You will receive immediately an email that shows you what you submitted. The receiving side will receive an inbound request, and they will respond to it, and you will receive an email that looks like this, and it'll contain the case number for the receiving side, their contact name, contact information, and then some next steps, right? And in most cases, it's going to be the receiving member is going to contact you directly because, of course, they have your contact information. So it's all really kind of designed to be that simple handshake. The one thing that I will point out, and you hopefully notice that you see that in the first email that you get, you see these escalation instructions. So this is the, if something doesn't work, you have alternate method to escalate. So for example, if you don't hear back on the SLA, it gives you some ability to reach out directly. And then in that final handshake, we send that to you again, just in case during the resolution process, if something doesn't go right or you feel you need to escalate that, you have those simple escalation instructions embedded right in all the emails that you get as well. And I'll show you also how to go back to the TSANet Connect interface and get that also if for some reason you lose those emails. So it's always easy to go and figure out if something's not going right, how you escalate. And really the last piece is after a couple of days, you will get feedback from the system. We do like to hear back from everyone on if it went great. If it didn't go great, let us know. This is really how we improve the system, improve working with the partners, is to get feedback directly from the engineers that are using it. So you got an opportunity to get some feedback there as well. A couple best practices here before we switch over to demo. The first one is making sure that you gather the required information from the customer. And for the most part, you'll see when I show you the different forms, you're already going to have all the information, right? Because you have the contact information of the mutual customer because you're working with them. So really the two things to keep in mind are when you are working with a customer and you say, hey, I need to pull in vendor X. It is always good practice first to make sure that they know that you're going to do that. And when you do that, see if the customer already has a case open with that vendor, because a lot of times that could be the case, right? The customer may have opened up a case with every single vendor in their environment because they want to get it solved. So this is just kind of helpful if the customer's already working with them to kind of get the cases linked, so to speak. So always ask that question. And then the second one is if you are working with a vendor that is a piece of, you're probably going to need the serial number, because in a lot of cases, that's where entitlement is. That's where I get all their information on versions, that type of thing. So always get the serial number from the customer in those cases. Be careful about sharing sensitive customer data. That can be done after you get directly connected with a member. So things like IP addresses, login details, things like that. And then the third is keeping all stakeholders updated. And this is both for a sender and a receiver, right? It's always best practice not to go and start excluding the other partner from troubleshooting information or contacting the customer directly and kind of leaving the other vendor out of the loop, right? Keep everyone in the loop until it's very clear where the problem is. Then a vendor can work directly with the customer to resolve that. But until that kind of agreement is made, it's always best to keep everybody updated. And the last one here before the demo, escalation. As we showed, probably the most common is you're having an issue with that exact case you're working, and you saw that's going to include escalation instructions in all the emails you get. So that's always going to be there. Always leverage that if you're having some issues. If you're having problems with the Connect system itself, you can do the contact TSANet membership. And then as far as your homepage, you also see where you've got internal contacts that are listed as well. So any type of internal thing, if you got questions, you'll see your contacts listed there also. So let me pause here a little bit and see if there are any questions before I go to.
Okay, so yeah, one of the things is with the mutual customer aspect, does that actually mean that I'm assuming that it does, but does it actually mean that the customer involved is entitled to support from the other vendor?
Yes. Now, the exception to that could be that you have a special arrangement with that other vendor where you are providing the front level support and there you have some back end relationship with them. So you can set up those types of relationships on the system as well. We call that solution support. But the most classic one is it's a mutual customer. They have support entitlement with both vendors. So it's designed that you're not supporting customers that you shouldn't be supported and other vendors aren't supporting customers are not supposed to be supporting.
So in that answer, does that mean that integrators are also part of TSANet, or
so we do, yeah. So we do have so TSANet is open to both vendors as well as integrators. I will say today it's probably 95% vendors. We don't have that many integrators. I think partially because a lot of integrators, they just have one or a few relationships with key vendors that they sell products to and support products. So they generally have formal back-end relationships with them already in place. But we do have some, and in that case, yes, they would. Obviously, the end customer still needs to be properly entitled.
And when you're looking for relationships in the initial search, that you are searching for the company first to see whether or not they're part of TSANet, or you as an individual have to have created some sort of connection with that company yourself?
Nope, you're just looking in TSANet Connect to see if that vendor is part of the network, right? Okay. So you don't have to do any pre-work. What we do have a lot of vendors do, and this has become a more popular thing, this might be something that you guys take a look at as well, is vendors now have the ability to do, or they've had the ability in the last 5 years or so, to put their partner networks on TSANet, right? So if you have a partner program, you could basically go and say, hey, I want all of my partners to be on TSANet, right? And we then work with you to make sure that happens, right? And there's ways to pull them in and very efficient kind of one-on-one relationships if need be. So a couple of examples, VMware, for example, they do their TAP program. They bring all 300 of their TAP partners on there. So there's ways to kind of make certain that all your partners on there. But like I said, we've got 800 plus members. More than likely, you've got them on there. But if you want, you could, think about, hey, here's the top 5 companies I work with. Do some search, make sure those are on there. If they're not, then you can either reach out to myself or Ryan, or we can take a look at what it takes to close those gaps.
So when I'm thinking of it from a practical standpoint, now my interest is largely that I work on quite a bit of IPsec implementations.
Yep.
And often the customer will say, well, I'm trying to start an IPsec tunnel with a Fortinet, for example. Now, often it's difficult for that customer to get Fortinet or even Cisco or whoever's involved. It's difficult for them to get them on the phone, or at least they seem to view some sort of barrier in order to coordinate the other vendors' attendance on a call or involvement. Is this kind of a way of not circumventing it, but going about getting another vendor involved where the
Yeah.
customer would normally open a ticket?
Yeah, I think it's a good, excellent point, right? So, if you think about it, the main competition to TSANet is making the customer do the work, right? And that is a challenge, right? I mean, they then have to coordinate all the calls, they have to coordinate the meetings, who's this on there? How come they didn't show up? This really allows the vendors to work directly together. The customer can choose to be involved or not be involved, but they don't need to, right? Because at this point now, you and that other party are connected, and you can work out those details, right? And especially for issues that are very complicated and take a long time, right? That's very frustrating for the customer to be like, now I've coordinated the 5th call to try to figure this issue out, right? That's going to become a sure escalation versus, in those types of situations, just let me work with Cisco directly, and we'll keep you updated, Mr. Customer. That's just a lot better experience.
So I see that you did mention about not sharing customer specific or customer sensitive data. I assume that doesn't go forward into discussing, individuals involved in saying, look, I've been talking to Chad or whoever from this customer, like names and stuff are obviously you can't avoid that.
Exactly. And when I pointed that out, it was more for the initial collaboration request, right? So once you're connected to the member, then you've got a point-to-point interface, and that's just considered a bit more secure than going through our system. We are currently getting ISO 27001 on our system, however, so I would say, as we get into the second half of this year, then it probably won't be as large of an issue, after we get ISO 27001. But we basically say best practice when you do that first initial collaboration request, try to keep that information out of the form.
Okay. And just one last thing, and tell me if I'm asking questions that you're going to cover. But,
no, that's perfect.
So when you're sharing, so I have an F5, I'm sharing maybe more specific information about, I think there's a possible problem here. I'm looking at certain bugs, or I'm down that avenue. What's the established sort of procedure for that other vendor? Is the other vendor who might receive kind of sensitive information from the partner, will they feel free to share that information from the other partner to the customer, or is the idea that that each vendor is in control of the information flow for their specific side to the customer involved?
Yeah, great point. So the legal framework does make all the vendors feel comfortable, right? That their IPR or sensitive data isn't going to be shared with the customer without their intent, right? So that's back to the best practices, right? Making sure everybody's involved in the communication, right? So not kind of going around and saying, oh, I heard from Cisco, they probably have a bug, right? No, that information should be shared but by Cisco, but kept you in the loop as well. So yeah, I think it's intended once the issue is found, then the vendor that has the problem should be the one that is communicating that to the customer, right? Because that's then, going to put them on the spot as far as, okay, well, now that you've identified it's your problem, what is your resolution? What's your timeline? All of those types of things. So you do want to let that vendor drive their problem resolution process.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's all from me.
Okay. If there's no other questions, let me switch into the demo. Are you guys able to see my my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to find the same thing. Obviously, when you log in, you'll find obviously you'll have your logo up here. You'll have your own company notes and link to training. I will update the training with this recording after we get done, so you'll have kind of updated, refresh stuff here, and then you got some news feed here. But for the most part, it's this simple top part of the form that you're using, right? And again, the dynamic search works and such that you just start typing some letters and it's going to show you the results. And you can see here I've got Red Hat showing up. That's the one I want to collaborate with. I just go ahead and select that, and you can see pretty straightforward. All these forms, like I said, are really going to be the same. The only changes or variations you may see is the vendor could have asked for some customized fields to be added in the problem information section. And you can see here that Red Hat's done that to kind of select the right product line and version. And that, generally speaking, tends to have to do with routing it to the right team. So you may see that. And then you may see some information like account number, or like I said, serial number, right? So let's just kind of take a look at a serial number example here. Let's see, NetApp, right? They've got hardware, and sure enough, they want to see a serial number. So, but again, you can see this form look really exactly the same. They have a similar type of product piece there as well. But for the most part, these forms are going to look exactly the same. It's going to autofill your contact information here. You are always going to put your internal case number here, and I'll show you why that's important. You are then going to put your problem information here, just a quick summary and description. And this is where I say, try not to put the sensitive stuff in here. You're going to put all the common customer information, and then you're going to select the priority. And one thing that you can see is happening here is it is going to tell you what the expected response time is, okay? And we use this to set a timer and trigger escalation alerts if the member does not respond to you within that agreed time frame. So this kind of makes sure that you're going to get a response as well. And you'll see in the test case piece, you're going to fill this out. Once you press submit, like I said, you're going to receive those emails and that information as the slides are shown before you. So you'll kind of experience that handshake. The other piece that I'd just like to show you here in the demo is the exceptions that could happen, right? The first one is, you can see here, this red seal, you do not have a relationship with them. So if you select this, it's just going to ask you to provide a short comment on why you need to work with them. And this is just trying to understand the sense of urgency, right? If it's a case critical issue, we'd like to know that sooner than later so we can kind of give that the right priority when reaching out to that other member. But like I said, when you send that request, it's going to come to us. We'll work with your business manager to get that relationship connected. The other example is, you search for a company that doesn't exist. You can select this, not able to find a partner. Basically give us as much information as you can, right? Especially if you've got a contact over there, that's great. That helps us to kind of reach out to them. But again, similar type of thing, trying to understand why you need to work with them. So I would say those are really the main exceptions that you're going to find. The other piece that I would share on the interface here is, like I said, you can pin favorites, right? And you do that by, at the top of any form, it's going to have this little star here. Once you start, it's going to show up in your list. So if you work with a group of companies very frequently, then that might be a reason for you to pin that there. Okay, but otherwise, that's really the interface, right? I think the only really other two things that you would have to worry about on this call, right? There's an admin menu here that very few people have access to that. That allows you to do some administrative things. But as a user, you've got your profile where you can update your profile. But then the other piece that you should be aware of is this history. So if you select this, it's going to show you all of the outbound collaboration requests that you have made as an individual, right? And you'll see when we do the test case, it'll show up in your outbound. This gives you the ability to go into it at any point in time And remember I said, hey, if you lost the emails, it's going to show you the escalation instructions, right? So if you lost some emails somehow, that's a good way to get back and get the information. The other use case you may have as an engineer is, say, one of your coworkers reassigned you a case that had an active collaboration on it. And maybe they weren't the best at keeping the notes, and they forgot to do the escalation instructions, and you want to find that out. You can click on this View Company Reports, and you'll be able to see all of the outbound and inbound collaborations, right? So, for example, say it was an inbound request, you can drill into this, and again, you can see what the escalation instructions were, who you're working with. So that's a good way, you know, if you've been reassigned something and looks like there's an active collaboration, to see, you know, when was it started, who are they supposed to be working with, that type of thing. Okay, but the last piece here is I'm going to show you how to do a test case. And what I always do at the end of the call, then, and we'll see if there's any questions. While people are asking questions, you guys can be sending me test cases, right? Or if you need to jump off and do something else right away, that's fine. You can send me a test case at any point in time. But let me show you how that works. You're going to go to the interface here, and you're going to type in test. Okay. And of course, I can't see this because I am the test company. Of course. Let me show you. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to masquerade as one of you real quick. Okay, so in your interface, if you type in test, you're going to see this test company. Okay, you're going to select it. And again, I'm not going to do this because you guys are going to do it. But you're going to put in your internal case number. Obviously, this is a test, so you can just type in test in all these fields, right? The only fields I'm going to complain or are going to want valid information is this enter customer email. And I always just put test@test.com, or you could put your own email address in there, but it's going to want to see a valid email address. And same thing with this phone. And what I would do for the phone is just use your phone numbers, cut and paste it right in there. So you're going to do that, and then select the priority, and then press submit. Okay, and then that will come to me, and I will go ahead and respond to that, and you'll get a good kind of sense of how this thing works. Okay, but with that, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions, and then we'll see who's the first to get a test case coming my way. But we'll start first for the questions. Unless you don't have any questions, then you can send a test case, and as soon as you do that and get a response from me, feel free to drop off.
We have to have a login though, right?
Yes, you do have to have a login. And if you do not have a login, then go to f5.connect.tsanet.org.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of fun and games with this because just in the background, I've created an account and my email address appears to be registered, but I'm having all kinds of problems after this. Like I had to reset the password, and now when I try to update my details, I just can't seem to be able to do it.
What is it? Is it giving an error message or?
So I'm able to log in now after I reset my password. I put in the password that the system didn't like. And it kept saying to me, oh no, choose a new password, but that no matter what I picked, it didn't matter. Eventually I realized that I needed to hit the reset password because somehow my account, because eventually it started telling me, oh no, your email address has been registered, you can't register this account. So I reset the password. Now I've changed the password, and now when I log in with the credentials, it throws me to the update profile dialog.
Yes. Yep.
And then I put in my details, because the only thing that's public is my email address. I put in my name, my location, the phone number, and then I re-put in the password. And now when I hit update profile, it says the email has already been taken.
Hold on. Does it take you back to the interface?
No, it just leaves me on the update profile page, which I only saw after I logged in.
Hold on a second. Let me, can you paste your email in the chat?
Yep, it's just my last name at f5.com. Let me find the chat.
And I have received a couple of collaboration requests so far, so good job, guys. Okay, let's see if I can figure out what's going on here. So there is 2 profiles. Interesting.
I think that when it
I'm
says,
gonna get rid of one of your profiles.
okay. I think that when it says one non-numeric character and then it gives examples, I think I was using a character that was outside of the example and it was getting bumped. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Let's see, because it shouldn't really.
Because I wasn't able to reset the password until I chose a special character that was one of the special characters in the list.
Okay. Now let's do it from scratch. So I got rid of your profiles. I think there was just something wrong with it.
Right.
Go back to the interface and register as brand new.
Okay, I'll do that. And you can look at the whatever other people are doing.
Yeah, I'll start responding. Got a few, so good. And when you guys get my response.
Oh, I tell you what I might have done. I might have hit send email twice because there was such a delay that maybe that actually created the 2 accounts.
Could be. And while I'm responding to all these, any other questions or anybody else having problems?
No, clearly everybody else can follow the instructions.
I have a couple of questions. Actually, the first one just relates to a lot of what Michael was asking before, but it was just a final point. I think we previously on our TSANet procedures had a step which was that the customer opening a case with both vendors prior to opening a TSANet case was a prerequisite. From what you've said so far, it doesn't sound like that's a prerequisite on TSANet Connect.
Yeah, so it depends, right? You as a vendor can define your own requirements for inbound, right? And some vendors do say, I need to have a case open. A classic example, IBM is that way. And a lot of them do that because the inbound entitlement is so complex. They're like, hey, let's just make it simple and have the customer have an existing case open. So you'll find a couple of those. I would say it's more rare on TSANet Connect than it was before. I would say before it's probably 50-50. Now, since people can control the forms and say things like, I need a serial number, like Cisco used to be, you can't talk to us unless you have a case number. Now you can basically dynamically create a case as long as you have a serial number.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for a lot of the reasons you were saying before. If we're interacting with customer data, it makes sense that the vendor that owns that is getting it and understanding it.
Yes, I do agree. Now, I would say, the other thing that we really see most people doing as a best practice, right, is when you get a collaboration request from another vendor, of course you validate with the customer before you start sharing stuff, right? So this is back to the best practice. Keep everybody in the loop. Don't be cutting the customer out of the loop either. That's not a good thing with data privacy and all those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, years and years ago, I used TSANet for something that I didn't need to directly involve the customer in, and it worked. It was I needed to query about how a driver worked, a print driver with HP, and I didn't need any customer data, so I could have that dialogue in the background with HP, understand what was going on, fix it on our side, and then be able to go back to the customer and say, hey, look, we worked together. It was a generic issue, and here's the answer for you.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's a good, compatibility issues, things like that, where it's like, hey, we found an issue, we need to work on. There's one or more customers involved. That definitely. Yeah.
And the other quick thing was the audience here is where we've pitched TSANet Entry Point in it, which is our escalations team, kind of our second level support. Okay. Is that specific to every organization how they implement that? So we're not. Yeah.
So and I will say it does differ between your inbound process and outbound process, right? So a lot of vendors are like, hey, when it comes to inbound, we needed to get to our best of the best, right? Because they tend to be these nasty collaboration things, probably the customer's at their wits' end. So for inbound, they tend to make sure they get fast tracked to the right place. But for outbound, a lot of people just open it up to their whole support organization, right? Because, collaboration could, happen right within the first, hour of conversation. It's like, hey, it's just a lot easier if we can start collaborating on this. So a lot of companies will be like, hey, let's make it super easy for a lot more outbound collaboration. But when it comes to inbound, let's make sure we got the inbound process bringing it to the right teams.
Great.
And there's no restrictions as far as number of users and such, right? So you certainly could open it up more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions for Paul?
Or anybody still?
Have you received a bunch of requests, Paul?
Yep. I've got 5 good. So far, so.
Okay.
Hopefully people got the response and okay, Michael, you were able to get a login file?
Yeah, I did, but because I wasn't paying attention, I'm not sure what phone number I'm supposed to put on for the customer contact.
Oh, what I would do is just put your own in there. It just needs to be a valid one for the test. Yeah, it'll complain if you put a bogus phone number there.
I'm just used to typing in bogus phone numbers into every
website. I hear it. Yeah, field validation is kind of annoying in testing, but I just got it.
Hey, Paul, maybe I have a quick question. One thing that's not very clear to me is what advantage do we have to use TSANet when the customer can already, start the communication flowing with their other vendor and start an email thread?
Yeah, good point. So I would say there's kind of two things, right? One is once you're under kind of the TSANet umbrella, then you have the advantage of, we'll call it the legal framework and the code of conduct and all those types of things, right? So I'd say that's kind of the first one. The second is you're kind of taking the burden off of the customer, right? So, and I would say even if the customer's already done that, right? Say, great, I understand you've got cases open with both. Let me kind of take ownership of that interface. I can collaborate directly with the other partner and keep you in the loop, Mr. Customer. More than likely, the customer would be happy that you took that initiative. So again, I'd say kind of the big one is back to the customer experience and trying not to put the burden on them as far as collaboration.
But exactly how does TSANet Connect helps? Because from what I understand, there is no further exchange via TSANet once we have exchanged or email addresses and phone numbers, or is that something different?
Yeah, so the thing that you do get that you wouldn't get from the customer is their escalation process, right? So once you tie your cases together, you're going to get that escalation instructions that basically, hey, if things go south, here's how you can escalate. Versus you really wouldn't get that. You'd have to go to the customer and say, hey, such and such isn't responding to me. Can you escalate? So again, you kind of get some more direct information and probably better escalation path if things aren't going right.
Okay, good point.
And let me introduce a bad word here. I mean, this avoids finger pointing. I mean, we have had in the past a lot of cases where customer opens a call towards company or vendor A. Vendor A checks his logs, doesn't find a problem, goes back to the customer, says, it's not me, maybe you should contact B because it's the operating system, it's a network, whatever. So I think this and then they check it, and there's something in between. Some setting has changed, some upgrade or anything was made and caused the problem to happen. And I think this finger pointing can be avoided, and this is, I think, an advantage for both companies. For those who may have caused the problem, or the product that have caused the problem, as well as for the other company, which was directed the call towards because the customer didn't know better. So I think this is a major topic as well.
Yeah, and I do think you're not alone in asking that question, right? In fact, when we designed TSANet Connect, right, one of the feedback during some of the initial prototypes and stuff was it needs to be as easier than the engineer just saying, hey, Mr. Customer, call this other vendor, create a case and loop me in, right? And hopefully you saw here from the demo, it is just as easier than that, right? So then it gets you kind of a little bit more direct contact. So we tried to make sure the system was super easy, so there wasn't this kind of burden of do I do A or do I do B, right? You want to make sure they're both super simple.
Well, so it's just a quick feedback from my side. The only time I really had to interact with TSANet was with Microsoft, and I had the support guys from Microsoft just laughing at me when I said I would be opening a case on behalf of a third-party customer, right? A common customer.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
just to say, they are not all aware of things, and Microsoft is not, one of those where you can have like the form that you showed us. You just have to call and get through all their support process, and they have no clue, right?
Yeah.
Just be aware.
So I will say there's two other companies to be aware, and we are definitely working very hard on all three of these, right? So Microsoft is one. We are working to get their process converted over to the TSANet Connect process. I think you'll probably see that here in the next couple of months. But then the other two, one is Oracle, and then the third is Lenovo. So those are kind of the three that we still have not moved to the process form. So if you do search for those, exactly like you said, you're gonna view a process form from the old ways of working. So we're still working to convert those over.
That's good news. Thanks.
Just from a practical standpoint, let's say I'm working with a customer and they do, for example, let's say they loop in a Cisco engineer, as is more common in my example. Now since they've already looped in a Cisco engineer, my inclination would be to say to them, perhaps we should be connecting over the TSANet interface, or is that almost redundant at that point? Do you think, or this should be the way of doing it?
Yeah, so I would say nothing is bad going to happen from making that redundant connection, right? So I would say, if they've already done it, then great, they've done a piece of the work for you. And when you fill out that form, just put that existing Cisco case number in there, right? Again, I would say the the biggest advantage is if it doesn't get solved right away, right? You've got a better connection into Cisco. You've got escalation processes to leverage, right? But if it's the type of thing where it's like, you know, hey, they've already done it, and you're on a call and it's clear it's Cisco's problem, right? And Cisco's on the phone. Yeah, you know, so there's definitely, you know, probably some scenarios where water's already under the bridge and hey, they already looped Cisco in and Cisco's already taken ownership of the problem and is off, you know, working with a customer, and you're kind of like, well, it doesn't make any sense for me to, you know, roll backwards and and connect them in. So, you know, I think there's a bit of, you know, what is the problem?
I do like what your first point really, which is, you know, if you feel like you might not be getting any traction with the vendor, at least you're kind of processizing it a little bit when you're talking about that escalation path. Because the thing that's on my mind actually is, okay, I can open up a TSA Connect case, and then it should be, in theory, if the company's processes are working properly, I assume that information should be routed to the engineer that's actually involved, right? That has to be part of signing up to the TSANet.
Yeah. Exactly. So it is going to flow through. I would say you got a shot of a better connection to the right engineer to solve it, right? A lot of cases it does trigger off an internal escalation process because it's like, hey, now we've received a formal escalation collaboration request from another vendor. So a lot of times that does trigger off a process. But then, like I said, you get some additional escalation information as well, right? To where if the right thing's not happening, you can push some buttons. You know, I would say the other thing that I would highlight, and not a lot of vendors are taking advantage of this yet, but I do feel that like this is the next step coming, but it can't come unless people use it, right? And that is analyzing their collaborations and trying to determine who are the vendors that we collaborate most with, right? What are the common problems, right? Could we address some of those with product improvements? Could we address some of those with documentation things, right? So you are going to get that type of data because, you know, again, you can go into your interface and look at your reports, and it's going to show you all of the collaborations that you've had, right? So again, both inbounds and outbounds, it's always going to link up to your case number, so you can match that with your CRM data and figure out, you know, what are the time to escalate, what's the total escalation time, what are the product areas that are most affected by collaboration. So this kind of, you know, analysis would be possible in the future if you're leveraging Connect, right? So again, I think that gives you a little bit more visibility into what's really going on.
Yeah. I don't want to rain on Rainer's sporting event, but just one other question. Is Azure and Google Cloud also involved in this?
Yes, Google is.
But Azure falls under Microsoft, or is just not?
Yeah, so Azure is actually the first one that we're working on with Microsoft to do TSANet Connect. In fact, since I'm the test company, you can see I do have access to it. So we're still in the test phase, but just so you get a sense, yes, it is coming, and they're going to require the tenant ID, right? So again, here's an example of customization where they need a particular piece of information in order to link you in. But yeah, Microsoft is coming, and Azure will be the first that goes live with the form-based process.
Okay, thank you. This has been really good.
No, appreciate the questions.
Yeah. And don't be shy, or if you have some more questions, I think it's a good occasion to ask them, because we are all together here. And
and like I said, you know, if things come up later, feel free to shoot me or Reiner an email.
Yep.
You know, happy to.
We'll guide you through immediately if you experience any sign up problems or whatever. So just contact either Paul or myself.
All right. Well, thanks very much from me.
Very good. Yep. Thank you very much for attending the call. I hope you now will use the system if it's required, and it will help you as you're expecting it. And I can tell you we have, besides those 4 companies Paul was mentioning, which are just in the phase-in of the product, all the other members are on TSANet Connect, and they are using it as collaboration cases arise. And we are there in case of escalation is necessary, but in most of the cases, the process that's behind TSANet Connect works, and there's an automatic timer going off, and informing people that a case has been raised, and then the response is usually within the SLA. And just to say, just to point this out, the response from the other members is part of the legal agreement every member has signed when it became a member of TSANet. So you have a strong requirement to respond to your requests in time, and also with a qualified answer. Okay.
Thank you, Rainer, and thank you, Paul. Thanks for pulling it together.
Thank you very much again, and enjoy the evening, and we will talk to each other later on.
Thanks, Rainer. Good luck with
Thank
football.
you.
Yep.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep. Bye.